everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. So what I wanted to do today was I kind of want to discuss gis, right? And we all have a different type of gis. We all have our preferences. Some of us just have the most bare bones and some of us have the most exotic. And really the gi is the part that you really use to express yourself. And some schools will make the choice for you. It has to be white, it has to be a club gi, so in that way you really don't have a choice. But a school like ours, a Kama Jiu-Jitsu, we really don't care what gi you wear. So long as number one, it's clean, number two, it doesn't smell, number three, it has to have Kama Jiu-Jitsu, either a patch or an embroidery on the back. And that's really it, but you as a practitioner can wear anything you want. One that, let's kind of start with an exotic, and this is one of our members' gis. It's one of the Lucky Bamboos. This is done in pearl weave. You want to kind of zoom in on the pearl weave here. You kind of see that it's a relatively closed weave in that if you hold it up to the light, like I'm doing right now, you really can't see through it. But the material itself, the bamboo, it's very soft. This is one of the gis that I know some old manufacturers of gis that were maybe not really up with the times. They kind of were old school in their gis and they didn't go with the market. They'd kind of complain, why does everybody want these new pajama gis? And the bamboos are one of them. If I remember right, the first to do these was Lucky. That was Scotty Nelson, who owns Lucky Gis, and he did what's called the fleur de lis, which was a white with green and black on it. And it was a nice gi. I had one of those back in 2012, 2013. He's made several series of those since then. This one came out a few years ago. I don't remember what he called this one. It's the bomber one, I think it was. Yeah, it's got that. And what he does is he tends to make his gis with a theme, and he's done the Star Wars as well. But Scotty, yeah, he in fact, he's got a couple of bamboos that are dropping as we're filming this. So that's bamboo. Bamboo, you like it to be heavier, so he tends to go with 550 weight gi. Now, keep in mind 550 is not really that heavy in the historical perspective. When I started, there were only judo gis. And you either had the expensive Mizuno ones or you had the cheap Tiger ones. They were either single weave or double weave. So a double weave was probably the equivalent, maybe 1,300 grams to today. Whereas now a heavy gi is 550 grams, and a single weave was about 550 grams. Now we have lighter gis. Now we have like 300 grams, which are the very thin ones. But it really comes down to what you like. I never liked my gis all that hot, but I do like them to be heavier. I like the weight, but I like the weight without the hot. And that's where the bamboos come in, and that's why I have a lot of these bamboo gis myself. Now let's say you don't have the money for a bamboo gi, but you want the weight as well. So one that you can look at, this is actually a Lucky as well, but this one is made of cotton. And this is what we call gold weave, right? So you can see it's got kind of a honeycomb structure to it. And this honeycomb structure tends to allow the material to breathe some over the bamboo, which is more of a closed type material. But bamboo, it naturally breathes. So bamboo in pearl weave is great. And if you're gonna go cotton, which doesn't breathe as well as bamboo, something like a gold weave would be really good. That way you get the weight of the gi if you like the weight, but at the same time, it's a more of an open type fabric structure, and I'm holding it up and I can see through it. If you think of cheesecloth, this is much stronger than a cheesecloth, but you can see through it. You can see light through it just like you would a cheesecloth. This just happens to be a Lucky as well, but yeah, it's this material that you might like as well if you like the weight. Some people will like a lighter type gi, and they're more traditional, and that's where we have the traditional pearl weave cotton gis. These tend to be your more inexpensive gis. They're more conventional. Most of the factories just have a ton of this material just laying around. So this is the same material weave as the bamboo. So if I hold them next to each other, they're pretty much the same. I don't know if you can kind of see them both. It's the same weave. except this is made of cotton and this is made of bamboo. So when wearing them, the bamboo will be a little more comfortable. It's softer on your skin than the cotton is. Cotton, you can make it soft, just use a lot of fabric softener. Some people don't, I do. But these are just your standard gis. This one has what's called ripstop pants. So it doesn't really stop rips. It's just back, the old sleeping bag material, tent material was made out of nylon. They'd make it in this pattern of ripstop. These are cotton. They're not made of nylon, but you see these little squares that you can kind of see. That's supposed to make it stop. If you get a hole in it, it won't keep ripping, but no, they'll keep ripping. As opposed to denim pants. So just think of your jeans, but they're not blue, they're just white. And then the third option for pants, they'll just use cotton canvas, which doesn't have the lines in it like denim would, and you just think of canvas, but a lighter material. So those are your cotton pearl weave, and then manufacturers will use whatever type of pants. They'll use canvas, denim, or they'll use ripstop. Me, myself, I'm not a fan of ripstop, but that's just how we made this particular one. And like I mentioned, how we have to have the patch on the back. This one's got a KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu patch in the back. Or, whatever club you're at, they might mandate whatever patch on their patches on the back of your gi, or they may not. A lot of schools, they don't really care about that. The last one I have to show you today is what I'm wearing now. It's a hemp gi. This is also KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu gi. And we have them in all kind of sizes. This is a kid size one. Kid sizes usually have the elastic pants like this. And the material, if you can imagine a shirt like the old Tommy Bahama shirts that were made of the raw silk, that's what a hemp shirt is like. And when you wash them and if you like to put fabric softener, they get really soft. I like hemp the best because it's a heavy material. At the same time, it's a very porous material. So if you get a hemp gi and you hold it up to the light, you can see through it. It's very thin, but the material itself is pretty heavy. But it's the strongest of all the gi materials. One little word of caution: if you do have a hemp gi and you see a little thread that's coming out, don't try to break the thread. What'll happen is you'll cut your finger. That thread is really strong. You want to cut it with use something like scissors or something to cut it. And this one, it's an embroidered patch that we put on, just like the other one. I don't have a version of an embroidered gi here. Instead of a patch, we just go and directly embroider onto the gi. But this is a different weave altogether. This weave is kind of like an old judo single weave gi, except it's made of hemp. Some gis will have this kind of taping in here along the seams, and we have them in our sleeves as well. We usually have them inside the pants. Yeah, we do have them in the pants as well. That's just kind of a decorative thing. It doesn't really make it any stronger, and it just kind of just adds a little nice look to it. Now, all of our gis are made of one piece from top to bottom, as you notice, and then what we'll do is we'll add a second piece right along the shoulders. That's just to add strength, and then also another piece in the armpits. I think we call them gussets, I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is the armpit piece right here. It's an extra piece of material, looks like an eye. And then we have them along the shoulders as well. So it's a piece of material that goes right here. You can see where the patch is here. It's embroidered on the front. So this is your front lapel. Underneath the patch, from right about here, is where we have the shoulder piece that goes all the way across to this side. That's to add strength, because when we're grabbing the gis here by the collars, you're actually grabbing the material here and then one more piece of material here, so you're kind of grabbing on two materials here to aid in the strength of the material. But these hemp gis are just very strong. The bamboo one, you can see it more here because they have a print on the single material here. He has a print, but then you see where the print disappears is because he's got the shoulder piece right here that covers it. And bamboo is a very strong material as well. It's not often that you rip bamboo. You'll rip cotton gis before you rip bamboo. So the difference between judo and jiu-jitsu gis, and we do have KAATARO judo gis as well. So basically, the cut is one thing that's different. So judo gis tend to be longer, right? And they tend to be wider. So when you put a judo gi on, for instance, KAATARO belt, by the way. So a judo gi would probably be down to here for me. And This part here will stretch a little further over, and this will come all the way over here, and this will come all the way over there. It's cut bigger, and this is there's more depth over here, and this isn't as tight as well. It's a lot looser as well. There's a lot more material, and same with the pants. The pants tend to be a little shorter and a little wider in the legs, especially. And also, judo gis tend to be made of 2 pieces. So whereas a jiu-jitsu gi tends to be made of 1 piece, and oftentimes it's actually I have a separate piece here and here, but this one goes here. It's just for the front, and then the entire back, from the lower front to the back, is an entire piece that wraps around. Judo gis, what they do is called setsugi stitching, where it's several pieces that they piece together. So you see in a judo gi often, there's a cut right down here, and there's a panel right here. There's another panel that goes from the lower half down, which is made of a different type of material. And then you'll have a cut that goes down here as well. And then you'll have a front panel, 2 front panels, and you'll have 2 back panels. And there's a big overlapping stitch that goes down the middle, and there's a big stitch that goes down this way. And and then a stitch that goes across here. I don't know if it's stronger or what. I don't know if it's stitching that's a weak point or if it's the actual material, because you can have the stitching and it won't tear at the stitching, but it'll tear right here. So it just comes down to wherever the material is weak, that's just going to be the weakest part. That's what we've got. We've got a bamboo. Bamboos and hemps tend to be the more expensive ones because they're more exotic, and the cottons tend to be the cheapest. As far as the weave of the cotton, is it going to be more expensive, one or the other? Not really. And it just really comes down to the manufacturer. Is an expensive gi better than a cheaper gi? No, really what you want to do is just want to get a gi that fits you and is comfortable. If you wear a rash guard, then sometimes the feel of the gi material doesn't really matter to you. But if you don't wear one, then of course it's gonna determine a lot what it feels like when you're wearing. So you might want to wear a bamboo or a hemp because it's a lot softer. You don't have to wear a rash guard. It really depends on your school. We require rash guards here because it's just nicer. Especially when you have women on the mat too. I don't like my big guys putting a bunch of chest sweat on people, and so it's just, like I said, it's just kind of a courtesy thing. So I just kind of insist that they wear a t-shirt or a rash guard under their gis. But the rash guard takes some of the roughness of the gi off because it's not directly on your skin. But it does kind of add to the extra layer of material you're wearing, so it could make it a little hotter. Now, as far as markings on a gi, every brand and school has a different requirement. So with us, this label is always here. And this is the label I always tell you when you're going to set up a choke, always reach your hand in deep and grab that label. You can feel it with your fingertips. So this is just our Kama Jiu-Jitsu label here. And we also have one here. Every manufacturer does that. So here's Lucky. So Lucky's got their label in here, as well as their label at the bottom of the left lapel. We like to have our patches here, one on the front here, and then one on the back. For our house gis, we also put Kama on the sleeves right here and here. And as far as the pants go, you got your old drawstring here. Always make sure when you put these on, you don't loop into here and then try to tie like this. This doesn't work. Always make sure you pull the string first and then loop and tie. That's just kind of a little aside here. We have our patch here, and along with the size, the size tag would either be here or it'll be here. It just depends on the brand. We have Kama here, and like I mentioned earlier, we have the tape inside of here to kind of just make it look a little better. One thing also is to give you a lot of stretch. They'll have a big extra piece of material right in the crotch here. This is so that you can have that type of flexibility in your legs and not be bound up in your pants.
So you don't go wedgie?
No, I think it'll be tight on the thighs if you don't have this extra material here. Now, as far as length, how long should the gi be? I'm a little bigger than I am long, so this is an A1L, I think. So it fits me here, but it's a little long here, and I've just been too lazy to get it cut. But For me, if I were to choose, I'd like to get it right about here. But it's just a little long and I'm too lazy to do something about it. Depending on your budget, it's better to buy a lot of cheaper gis rather than a fewer, more expensive gis, because they tend to get kind of funky after a little bit. Now, people say, well, just wash them in vinegar, but then you just end up smelling like vinegar. You know, like I said, I'd just buy the cheap ones and I would just dispose of them. That's just me, though.
Now, I'm curious, what are the different sizes? Because I hear you mentioned like A1 and
So you have the A's for your adult sizes, and your kid sizes can either be called a K or an M. And for us, our gis come in both K and M, but they really mean the same thing. If it's a K, it's a kid size. If it's M, it's a kid size. But the adults start with a 0, and that's for somebody who's about 5 foot tall. And an A1 takes you up to about maybe a 5'4", maybe a 5'5". An A2 takes you about 5'7", 5'8". An A3 takes you to about 5'11", 6 foot. An A4 takes you above 6 foot, and that's when you get people like 6'3", 6'4". They're wearing A4s typically. A5 is really about the same length as an A4, just bigger, just for bigger, huskier guys. And then in between those, we have the A3. So in this case, you see it's an A3H. This is, it could be heavy, it could be husky, it could be huscular.
seriously.
So this size, this particular gi is one that Dave Kama would wear, for instance. He's about 5'10", about 195, 200 pounds, so it's an A3H. He would actually wear an A3, but he likes his gis loose, so he always likes to get the H. I'll usually wear an A1H for myself, or an A2, a regular sized A2. But I'm not a true A2. I'm only 5'4" and a half, about 165, whereas a true A2 is about 5'7" or 5'8" and about 175. So somebody like Zach's size, he's training over there. He's a true A2. So those are your different sizes. Not all gi brands will have the H or the L. L is for long. So you could be a beanpole. Let's say you're 6 foot tall and you weigh 140 pounds. You're height-wise, you're about an A3, but width-wise, you're certainly not an A3, more like an A2. So an A2L would be an A2 width for about an A3 height. So an A2L would be like for somebody who's 5'10" to 6 foot tall and about 140 to 160 pounds. So different manufacturers, because they have to make so many gis and they have to try to predict what sizes they're gonna require, it's very hard for you to get an in-between size, whereas if you're an A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, it's pretty easy to get a gi that fits you. Sometimes if you're kind of a shorter, big guy, let's say you're about maybe 5'8" and about 220 pounds, or 210, maybe that'd be like an A2H, but you're kind of short, so you might have to go to an A3 and then just hem the sleeves and hem the pants, which can be a hassle, but you're kind of an uncommon size, so it might be hard to get a manufacturer to make one your size. So the logos come on, we get them manufactured this way. So these are custom gis that are made for Kama Jiu-Jitsu. That's why you have the patches on here as well. Whereas the Luckies are not, they're lucky. And then this are just simply put on by a seamstress. Same with the patch in the back here. This is just a regular patch that we had sublimated, and then the owner just went ahead and put them on.
Now, can you use, because there's like iron-on patches, or those?
Yeah, no, iron-on patches don't really work. These are actually sewn on. So the logo is sublimated onto the material, and then the material is cut and then sewn on, and usually you'll double stitch it on so it doesn't come off. And then, so that's a sublimated patch. So say again. So basically, a sublimated patch is one that's printed on with a printer. So it's an electronic process that uses, I think it uses heat, and usually they'll print it off on a sheet of paper, kind of like off of a color laser printer, and they'll run it through a process which then transfers it to the material. That's a sublimation. Whereas this patch is actually an embroidered patch. So they run this through the embroidery machine, and they create it that way. And there's, I don't know how many thousands of threads go through here. And then you can do all the different colors and stuff. And here's an example of our back patch. made by the same manufacturer that made this patch here. Except when we order the gi, they just go ahead and put them on for us, and when they come in, they're all ready to go. These are for people who buy gis elsewhere, and you see there's a little bit of this backing here as well. That just helps to hold everything in. But yeah, if you buy a gi from another manufacturer, you like another gi, there's another brand that you like. We have people here that like certain brands. They'll just do one of two things. They'll either get a patch from us and just go ahead and have it sewn on. This would go here like this, right? Or that way, right? Or we have 2 shops in our area that do embroidering for us, so they can go to those 2 shops in particular, and then they have our designs, and they can just tell them what colors they want the embroidery to come out, and the embroidery shop can match it. So if it's a black gi with silver, they can do this in black and silver. We'll have the manufacturer, when they make our gis, just put the patch off to this side. And for a while, what we're doing was we're putting our patch here and putting Hicks and Gracie's patch on this side. And sometimes we do it, just to make it a little different, just kind of play around with it. But yeah, this is our standard gi here. That they're basically our issued gi for brand new members. Which is a nice gi, It's not like some other schools I've seen. They'll give away a gi that's like a $20 gi. It's just a piece of trash, but they're giving it to you for free. So I guess what do you expect? Whereas with us, these are the gis that we sell, to our members for $150. So it's a good gi. I don't like to have crappy gis. It's not my thing. So a question that one of our students asked was, is there any place where the patches need to be if there's any protocol for it? So at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, historically, as long as the patch is on the back, we're good. However, Dave was just here last weekend, and Dave wants the patch to be in a prominent spot up on top. So as much as we like Lucky gis going forward, Lucky puts their thing right where our gi patch should be. So Dave doesn't like the Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch being subordinate to something else. So there's one particular manufacturer that puts their patch big right here. So that would mean the Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch would go right here. And it's okay, but it's just not something that Dave particularly cares for. That's the way I think about it. If Dave doesn't really care for it, then I'd rather not even bother. But these gis go back years, so of course we're good with these. But going forward, we like the patches to be prominent. There's some where they have a patch over here, and they have the Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch here underneath the belt. Dave's not a fan of that. And then, the only patch that we've historically allowed in place of a Kama Jiu-Jitsu gi is a Hickson patch. So if you have a Hicks and Gracie gi with a Hicks and Gracie, patch on it, then, find a place to put the Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch and you're good. But historically, if it's just Hickson's patch, it's okay. Yeah, and every school is different. So, whatever school you're at, just go ahead and ask and just make sure that you're not out of the regs. There's a couple of gis that I've seen where the entire back is just embroidered out. And unless you put a Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch right on the embroidery, that's not something that really can be used. I did have one student whose gi was just so covered in embroidery and stuff and prints and all that, when he came into the studio, I saw the gi, I said, hey, where's the patch? And he says, oh, it's right here. Right? That's the only spot on the entire gi that had nothing on there. So he put his Kama Jiu-Jitsu patch right here. So, he couldn't even put this one here. He could only put it right there. So that's not something that really works with the uniform. And in Kama Jiu-Jitsu doesn't allow a patch for another school anywhere on the gi. So, but like I said, we other than the regulation patches, then it's pretty much you can wear whatever you want. You can have stuff over here, here, here. It really hasn't mattered. Now, as time goes on, will Dave change his mind? I don't know. But historically, it's been just wear whatever you want. Just make sure you're patched up correctly. But some schools just try to make it easy and don't have any questions about it. Just buy one of the gis in the showroom. That's it. But that's just not how we function. So that's really all I have for now. But as far as gis, wear whatever you like to wear. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, these gis are so expensive, just realize that an $80 gi will work just as well as a $400 gi. It just really comes down to embroidery and the exotic materials. But if you're wondering whether it's better to buy one really nice gi or 4 no-name gis that are 60. By the way, we do have a link to some gis that are good quality gis that Scotty Nelson makes that are no-name gis off of our Amazon link. We should have that on there, right? Yeah, just go and check on the links below in the notes. And I think if last I saw, they're like $65. They're really inexpensive gis, but they're good gis. They're basically OTM gis, but without the labeling on there. So many of you would buy OTM gis. I used to buy a lot of them. But yeah, they're just OTM gis that are non-labeled, made by the same place. Anyway, I hope that answered a lot of your questions on gis, but by no means is this an exhaustive coverage of the types of materials and weaves that there are. There are tons of different. There's a smooth type. Some people make the tops out of the smooth material. Some do 2 different types of material. The top half and the bottom half for the skirt is a different material. It just goes nuts here, and then they have different colors. However ways you can think of imagining a gi, people are starting to do it now. But have fun with it. Whatever your school allows as far as your gis, just kind of stretch the boundaries. So, we have guys here wearing pink gis, and guys wearing pink gis. We have a guy wearing avocado gi. Somebody in the Irvine Academy was wearing a yellow gi. Kind of looked like a big bird color.
You did a special gis for the people who stayed during the transition period.
Yeah, for people that transitioned over to the house, where there's a 3-month period where we're training out of the house, out of my home studio, while our new place is being built. Those students got special black gis, black and green gis. But yeah, that we only made 50 of those, so there aren't too many of those running around. But yeah, the gis they're easy to play around with. You can kind of get creative with them. And you can be as exotic as you want or as plain as you want. It really doesn't matter. But for you, just choose whatever works for you. Choose whatever you want to be wearing, because you're going to be wearing it a lot. Hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, comment below. Hit the links if you can. We really appreciate the help. Take care. Happy trading. Bye-bye now.